Welcome to UGA Sports Live. My name is Rodney DeBulsi. I'm joined by Coach Jim Donnan. He is the former Georgia Bulldogs head coach. He is the main reason you are all tuning in. Dane will join us later. He's on dad duty, so we'll have him here in a minute. We appreciate all of you joining us on this Wednesday. We would like to have done it on Tuesday, but Kirby Smart had to meet with the media on Tuesday, which we really appreciate. We haven't spoken to him since the before spring camp started. Fall camp started. And he had a scrimmage, and he talked about it. And Coach, I know you want to get all your thoughts on this, but I want to start with what Kirby Smart said yesterday, because his intro to the press conference was something. He came on and basically said, "Hey, we're nowhere near where we need to be. We've got less depth than ever before." And I'm like, "What?" And I get sometimes you're just trying to kick people in the butt, but let's hear what Kirby Smart had to say, and then let me get your reaction on the backside of this. Not sure what the heck happened there. That was a major issue there. I'm back, and we got Coach back here. How you doing, Coach? Sorry about that.
We got Elon Musk messing with you or what?
Yeah, it was one of those situations where my internet went out completely, just shut right off. I'm like, okay, that was new.
So we starting over or what?
Nah, we're on now.
Okay.
So we just restarted it. Leanne says, yeah, Roddy broke it. I did. James Caraway says, no worries, it's preseason for everybody. All right, let's try this again. Coach, I want to get your thoughts on Kirby Smart's introduction to the press conference yesterday. It was interesting to say the least. He basically came out and said that, they had the least depth they've ever had. So I'm going to try this again. And maybe this is what broke it, but we'll try it again. Let's listen to what Kirby Smart had to say.
We got a long way to go as a football team. We are nowhere near where we close to where we need to be. I feel like we have less depth than we've ever had, and that's kind of a common theme talking to other coaches I talk to. I call it the deterioration of football, because every year we've been here, I feel like we've had more players capable of going in and play winning football, and every year that goes down. So we've got to keep working to increase that number.
Is that just coach speak, or is he really concerned?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons you watch this show is for the inside scoop. And what happened, he was cleaning out his desk, and he saw some notes from Coach Dooley that he'd given him to say at this press conference. And he was just going verbatim for no, seriously, Coach Dooley was one of the best at poo-pooing his team. And I usually was. I mean, the last year I was here, I talked it up a little bit too much. But I think the reality is there's expectancy level around here that it's just going to happen, because of our great success. And all Kirby's doing is just sending a message to his team that he wants more, and for the fans to understand that we do have some issues. No question about the fact we've got 9 new players from the transfer portal, and we're counting on some depth from some freshmen. And we don't have a lot of experience depth in certain positions. But, I still think our team has got what it takes, and it's going to mold together. And that's part of the fall camp and the whole process.
Give me your thoughts. Kirby has mentioned this a lot. One of the best things I ever learned from you was, I was always I don't say under the impression, but I kind of thought if the right guard goes out, then the number 2 right guard goes in. If the left tackle goes out, then the number 2 left tackle goes in. And that's not been the case for years under Kirby Smart. The number 6 guy goes in and you get around. He's talking about guys who are ready to play winning football. So he doesn't number them 1 to 22, 1 to 44, second string, third string. His definition between starter and not starter, because he always gets onto us about, well, why didn't so-and-so start? He's like, it doesn't matter. It's personnel groups. What are we going to call? Who are ready to – his definition is who can play winning football. Flesh that out for us, because a lot of people feel like, well, hell, you got 85 scholarship guys. They're all supposed to be winning football players.
Yeah, but, I mean, you've got to mesh that team together and put them in there and get the experience to go with the youth. But I think in the offensive line, it's just such a fine line between a first team and second teamer sometimes, but then there is a big gap. And then, maybe the best right tackle, the second team right tackle is not better than the second team center or left guard. So they just rank them 1 through 10, and they're going to cross train, and it's a little bit tougher to move a guy into center. But you've seen ever since he's been here, guys jumping in there and playing. When somebody goes down, that maybe a guy from the left side on the left guard will go to right tackle, and a lot of that. So, but one of the things that you see preseason camp, and I mean, I hear it around when you go to eat or you go to the doctor's office or you go anywhere, people are asking questions because it is what it is. I mean, college football, King football, it's August. We got two weeks and 3 days before the first game. It's an exciting time, and you want to have all the answers on the table, but at the same time, that's why you practice. That's why you recruit, you use the portal, you do everything, and Kirby's a master at putting everything together. And realistically, we've got new coaches, new players, a tough opener. So time's flying here and the hammer's down. I mean, it's just a little bit of a situation where it's imminent that not with the playoff now, with 12 teams, you can maybe lose maybe more than you used to, but losing around here is not acceptable anymore. I mean, everybody's still mad about losing 1 out of the last, 30?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 games in the last 3 seasons, and people are, they're not as we actually have a clip. We spoke to Oscar Delt, and he's like, Carson Beck has a bad taste in his mouth. He didn't say about Alabama, but he said after the loss. Well, there was only 1 loss, so we know which one that is. We'll play that clip for you in a second. But I thought it was interesting. Kirby said, hey, this is not just at Georgia. This is college football wide. He said it's the deterioration of college football. And that's getting a lot of play. And I don't know if that's just him using hyperbole or him just talking about the state of the game. But then he went on to say, hey, a lot of people would like to be where we are. You know, we don't have a lot of depth. We got a lot more depth than everybody else.
It's realistic.
Thank you. I was going to ask you.
To me, it's a realistic statement when you just look across the country and see all the teams that are vying to get into playoffs, and you see the losses on their team as far as going to the pros, graduating, injuries, transfer portal into the transfer portal from their own team. So it's not like you just take your team and mesh it over 3 or 4 years and build up. Every year it's a different scenario, kind of like pro football. You see guys going into the, think they're going to be part of a dynasty, and then all of a sudden free agency, you lose 2 or 3 players and you have to adjust. I think Kansas City last year was a tremendous example of doing what it took to win and repeat, just because they lost some really good receivers in free agency, and then they got some injuries and they weren't near as explosive, but they really solidified their defense with some really good pickups when they had Tyreek Hill go to the Miami Dolphins, and they picked up some great draft choices and they used that, and their defense was really special last year. So that's just an example. This is a college show, but adjusting to everything that goes on is part of being successful, whatever you're doing, whatever sport or whatever business, you got to adjust. So I think Kirby's talking to these other coaches because he's got friends that sharing the same problems. Look at Ole Miss. They got like 20-some new players. Marshall, where I used to coach, 62 guys in the transfer portal.
What?
62 players up there have never played at Marshall before. So it's just a trend that not that many most places. We saw Arizona State last year had way over 50 transfers. And what it does help you in, though, is if you're a new program or you're trying to reestablish yourself, you can do that now. It used to be hard to rebuild and reload. I mean, I would have loved to have the opportunity to have the portal when I was here because we were on probation and our numbers were down, and it's hard to beat Florida, Tennessee's depth when you don't have it, but you can't catch up overnight because you just can't take but 25 a year. Now, you can take as many as you can get as long as you don't go over 85. You lose some and you pick them back up.
He was asked about, speaking of the 85 limit, Kirby's about, hey, now you can go to 105. Are you, basically going to try to get them all this year? How are you going to work with that? And I thought his answer would be like, yeah, we'll sign 35 this year. We'll sign, however many. And he's like, we're not sure that we're going to do that.
I think talking to Kirby, the model is going to have to be what each program has the parameters to do for sure. But, you can take 105 and give 20 more scholarships. But at the same time, do you really want to do that and eliminate the walk-ons because they've been so special to us? And are those 20 that come in, are they going to be happy not playing like a walk-on might be to give your squad depth? So, and some of the walk-ons do get to play. So it's a new frontier. It's just like the portal 3 years ago. Everybody's had to adjust to it. It's like NIL, we're adjusting. Same thing's going to be with the scholarship. And then all of a sudden, some of these Olympic sports like baseball and other sports are going to have more scholarships, which they deserve. I mean, it's hard to have a baseball team with 13 scholarships and you break it up and all. Now they're going to have, 30 some. So, but where we're going to get the money for that too. I mean, you're going to have to pay for those scholarships, and we're going to have a deficit from one perspective, and the fact that $20 million next year out of the TV money is going to go to NIL, which it should go in some respect, but you got to make that up too. So definitely a challenging frontier in athletics right now with everything moving around like this.
I got some scoop for you, Coach. You always drop scoop on this show, and you always give us insight that we never can't get anywhere else. But I was poking around the Butts Mayor building the other day, and I saw some notes that somebody had taken, and apparently it was a conversation within the administration over there, and they had written down we need, $20 million, as you said, in the new profit revenue sharing. The schools are going to be spending $20 million on NIL. The University of Georgia is expecting to have to make an additional $4 million in either payments or the budget. They're going to need $4 million in addition to that $20 million. Now, I don't know if that's to cover the cost of, like I said, the Olympic sports or other things that are going on, but it's not just the 20. And $4 million, people can go, it's $4 million. That's a lot of money. It's an incredible amount of money. $2 million is a huge amount of money. Look, if you bring, like you said, 20 guys, keep them happy. That's tough to do. We see that now. Then you got NIL for additional. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot that's going to go into this. So I was a little shocked, but after he explained it, I'm like, okay, well, no wonder he's 3 steps ahead of us, because I just assumed if you could get 20 more football players, you would. But do you want to lose a Dan Jackson? I mean,
yeah, hey, that's the way it goes. Maybe you should take $10 of that and help you with your internet this morning too, because you're breaking up, my man. So it's nothing. It really, as many times as mine hadn't worked, I'm not going to get on you about it, but hopefully we'll get that going. But what we got next here? Let's don't talk about what happened yesterday. Let's get on to today and tomorrow.
Well, I do want to mention one video here from our guys. I teased it a second ago about Oscar Delp talking about Carson Beck, and I thought this was good. Let's listen to this.
No one likes how we ended the season last year, and you can tell he didn't, just the way he approaches practice every day. I mean, he's looking to get better and make guys around him better. I mean, he's confident. He's a great quarterback, and he's a great guy to practice with. So you can just tell he's got that chip on his shoulder kind of, and he's excited to play this year.
So that's Oscar Delp talking about Carson Beck. If you ask Oscar Delp about himself, he doesn't like to talk about himself, but he was happy to talk about his buddy, Carson Beck. Talk a little bit about the quarterback, a game where you lost.
Yeah, I think you were asking me about the quarterback. I'm not sure, but I'll try to answer. But for sure, Oscar Delp, to me, epitomizes what you get as a good player coming in that took advantage of some early reps with some injuries and has really become a premier tight end, like an excellent blocker, runs good routes, knows the system, knows how to work and develop, and sets a good standard for these younger guys that are below him, and also the transfer Urasek that came in. So I'm happy about the way he's progressed, and for sure, Carson knows what it takes. He had to, withstand some injuries and to himself, not so much to himself, but withstand the fact that he didn't make the team when he had a chance to be the starter, and had a tremendous year last year. And he's going to be outstanding. He's got a good line behind him. He'll be tremendous. I don't know if we're still on just me, but if Rodney's off, I'll be glad to talk a little bit about Georgia football here. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the UGA podcast. This is the old coach by himself, but I'm going to keep talking here because I'm not sure where Roddy is. But when you leave like that, can I keep talking when you leave?
Absolutely, you can. You just keep going.
I was going to give him an intro there. I introduced him, but I was going to give him a little monologue there, but go ahead.
I like your monologue. I wanted to ask you this about you've been a quarterback, you've been a head coach, you're a Hall of Famer. I think, to me, the best quarterbacks, the best offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, head coaches, the elite personnel hate losing more than they enjoy winning. And I just get that vibe from you. I'm getting that vibe from Carson, that Oscar Delp quote about Carson Beck having a bad taste in his mouth, not being happy about the way the season ended. I don't think Kirby Smart, you see him pump his fists after a win, and he seems so excited, but then 5 minutes later, he's on to the next game. And the press conference yesterday kind of felt like, not worried, but he's got concerns. So is that the criteria? Are you that way? Is it Do you
I think
enjoy a
part of
win,
it is-
or do you hate a loss more?
I think part of it is just the programs that you've been in. You know, when you are at a mediocre program and you're just so happy to get more wins than losses, and you're fighting for every win and you really savor them. But coaching at a place like Marshall or Georgia or Oklahoma, you know, where the expectancy level is such that you know, certainly you enjoy the wins, but you know, it's so seldom that you lose that it's just hard to take, because you know that more than likely you lost that game, the other team didn't beat you. I mean, it's very seldom that a good team that's got all the elements gets beat because they didn't the other team outplayed them. Now there's certain times that happens, but you look at the majority of them. You go to last year's game, the mistakes we made really were critical, and Alabama certainly outplayed us in some other areas. But I just think when you look at Kirby's background, you look where he's been, all that success, national championships, playing for him at Alabama, and then coming here and doing the same thing, that sure, it chaps his butt to lose, and chaps him to lose anything in practice. I mean, he's a competitive guy. You know, I used to tell him when he first got here, he kept talking about, you know, hey, they did a good job and we didn't do good. He was talking about the offense and it's compared to the defense. I said, hey, this is your team, coach. I mean, it's not just the offense and the defense. And everybody knows that. But, you know, just realistically, when you watch a practice, everything can't be perfect. And if the offense is doing good, then something's wrong with the defense and vice versa. So, but I do feel like that the first scrimmage, not looking hunky-dory and everything, everybody glowing about it, gets everybody's attention as far as the players that, look, this is not our standard. We've got to improve. We've got to do these things better. And it's not just going to happen. You're going to have to earn that right by the way you play on the field. So that's what we're going to see from Kirby and his guys. So it looks like we lost Roddy again. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about the personnel here that in the backfield. Everybody's talking about the different guys that are playing in our offensive backfield, the new guys. And just for a little bit of scouting report, Etienne really meets the bill here. He fills the role of a James Cook with a little bit more power, maybe not quite as fast. We also picked up, you know, this Frazier kid who is a lot in between a slot back and a running back that can catch a ball out of the backfield. Chauncey Bowens is a power back. The kid from over Atlanta's got really good speed. He just got to learn how to use it. And then certainly we got Branson Robinson and Rob and the other Robinson, Roderick coming back, and then Cash Jones. You just kind of take for granted Cash, but he's a player now, a great special teams guy, and could be a starter for a lot of teams in Division I. Back on there, Roddy?
Robinson, yeah, I'm here. Rod Robinson's got a mild toe issue, but I mean, he's in a boot. He was going with the rest of the players the other day. I asked Coach about Trevor Etienne being available for Clemson, and he very deftly dodged that question, talked about him being a leader in that room. Yeah, I guess he wasn't ready to answer that one. He didn't want to talk about Clemson at all, and which I get. He's like, we're not focused on Clemson. We're focused on our team. And I get why he's that way.
If you look at Georgia over the years, I mean, the way Kirby does it, the way I did it, most teams, you've got to get ready for the entire season, particularly when you're playing a non-conference opponent. The conference is what counts. Obviously, you got to win this game from a national perspective. But what you want to do here is train your team and your systems, but also give them a little bit of working knowledge about some of your early opponents. I mean, we played 2 road games right off the bat against Kentucky and Alabama. So anytime you spend here in the next few days on either one of those opponents, then the learning curve is going to be easier when you start promoting your game plan and showing their stuff the week of the game, because you've already had that They've done some in the spring against these opponents, and they do it in the fall. And it's just easier to say, hey, look, this is what we showed you, and this is what they're doing a little bit different. And particularly Alabama, from a standpoint, whole new program, new defensive coordinator, new offense coming in with Washington. So we're going to have to, as much as Alabama's going to have to adjust to us, we're going to see some of the same players, but completely different system. A lot of formations. I mean, Washington runs everything for that you could ever, just a myriad of formations. And then defensively, Kane Womack, who was the head coach at South Alabama, has a background of playing entirely different system than Nick implemented and Kirby uses. He's a lot more cover three, not as much press coverage, not as much pressure, a lot different style. Now, maybe he will change some of that to go with the personnel that Alabama has. And you talk about people rebuilding, and Alabama's got to reload their whole secondary. I mean, they lost 2 guys in the first 50 players drafted in the secondary that were drafted high. And then they also lost Caleb Downs to Ohio State. And I don't know if Caleb got more than the pros that got to sign, but they all 3 got money.
I knew that's coming. Hey, he's making over $1 million a year, so that ain't too shabby. Dane actually is joining us now, and before I even let him talk, I'm going to play the clip that he pulled from Kirby talking about this.
We were not where we need to be in terms of like depth and enough guys to play winning football. And I'm really so focused on like how we can get better today and how our team can get better. And that's down the road.
Just like you said, he is not focused. He's not doing Clemson prep week right now. It's coming. And like I said, you do those initial familiarizations in the spring and now, but you can just see he is focused on getting his team to the to where they can prep for that. And one of the questions I had about that, coach, is he mentioned that Jared Wilson, the projected starting center, has got a foot injury. He's almost back, but not quite. So they had a scrimmage without him in there. At what point do you have to say, Tate or Drew Bobo, you've got to be the center for week 1? In other words, how much time is it too late, or how much time do they need to get Jared Wilson ready to play against Clemson?
Yeah, I would say at least the week of the game, just because of the nuances of taking the snap. Okay. It's not like you're playing a guard or tackle, but you got to feel good about, as a quarterback, that putting your hands under center or lining up in the gun, that you can't be thinking about, can I get the snap? I mean, you've got to read the coverage. You got to call the play at the line. You got to check off. You got to do all that. It's got to be a second nature type deal. So even though most of the centers snap the ball the same way, it's a little bit different. So I think in particular, my experiences with over the years with hamstring, soft tissue, Achilles, better to err on the side of waiting as long as you can, because you do that, that happens again, then you're looking at 2 or 3 more weeks. So, and it's such a critical position because we lost a 3-year starter who's, in the NFL right now that played at almost every snap. So, but there's a little silver lining there in the fact that we've got a guard that can play center, and we've got 3 starting guards. So we'll see how that works out. But you just can't say, hey, go in there and play center, and expect him to play at the level he did at guard. But he's getting some good experience, and Carson's getting used to him. But I think the answer is as succinctly as I can, they'd like for Wilson to be ready to go. I think just because he presents such a tremendous athlete, among the top maybe 15 on our team, and you want to get him on the field, and also gives you a chance to roll those guards a little bit, because nowadays you get so many more people lining up on the guards head up than you used to. It used to be an odd defense, and the center would be covered, and both tackles would be covered, and linebackers be over the guards. So you didn't need to be as physical right there at the point of attack. But now people use a lot of 2 techniques, head up, 3 techniques, outside shoulder, 1 inside shoulder. And you've got to be able to match those guys. You got to be able to line up and come off the ball. And all 3 of these guys got really good power, leverage. And so I think you need a little rest once in a while, too. You just keep hammering those guys.
The whole situation reminds me of when, before his final year at Georgia, we were hearing that Jamari Sawyer was getting snaps at center. And we knew that wasn't the ideal position for him, but it just seemed like Georgia wanted to make sure it had all of its bases covered if X, Y, and Z happened. And sure enough, later in that season, Jamari Sawyer was the best option at center because of what Georgia had at guard and tackle.
Yeah, I mean, it happened to me one year. Lucky was our center, and he got hurt, and we moved Jonas Jennings in there because we had some good tackles beside Jonas, and he was very good at it. I mean, he among the better athletes that ever played in the O-line here, played in the pros for a long time, but it's still a little bit different. I mean, he had Booger McFarland on him there when we were playing LSU, and he was doing all he could. I said, hey, Jonas, hold him every time. If we get called, that's where it goes. That's just – you got to do that, and then get your best players out there. And it's hard to get a center that can do all the things that's necessary. And back then, now even more with all the calls and the myriad of defenses you see. And we've been very fortunate to have some really good centers here.
We're going to take a quick break here. People want to know why the internet's going up and down. I just saw the charter truck in my neighborhood here. They got the covers off of a couple of those little stations outside. So that's been
all the deer I see around your house. They could have bitten some wires, man. You never know.
Yeah, there's some wild stuff going on with those guys. But one place where you won't have a problem with your internet is if you go out to Athens Ford and you need any service done. They have a fantastic waiting room out there with snacks and drinks and coffee and all the software you want. It's a fantastic place and lightning fast internet. So if you ever want to get any work done while you're getting your oil changed or getting your car checked out, your AC looked at, you go out to Athens Ford, who right now have some fantastic specials because it is SUV season out at Athens Ford. So reach out there if you reach out to them if you need want a Ford Bronco for $7,000 off, or a Ford Explorer for $7,000 off, or a Ford Escape for $5,000 off, or $7,000 off a Ford Edge. And they have tons of financing deals and, of course, a lifetime powertrain warranty. And they will be sponsoring the UGA Sports Watch Along show. So if you want to watch Coach Donnan break down the Clemson game in real time, you need to thank our folks at Athens Ford because they will be doing that. We're also looking for a couple other sponsors for that show as well. We also have our friends at My Perfect business. We want business that you can advertise on UGASports.com. To my.
I'm going to pull Roddy's internet there and let that get reset. My Perfect Franchise, great way to become your own boss. Chat with Andy Ledecky, the variety of franchises that they have, whether you want to do service-based industry or maybe you want to do some B2B. You could do some working from home. Andy Ledecky can guide you through that process and find the best way to make it where you are in control of both your financial life, but also your time and your business life. So Andy Ledecky, My Perfect Franchise, longtime sponsors of UGA Sports and other websites within Rivals. So give them a try. All right. Looks like Roddy's back in here. Coach, overall final scrimmage, and y'all may have talked about some of this. And by the way, Coach, I'm glad you didn't tell Roddy that I hijacked his internet so that way I had more job security as a producer on this show. So I appreciate you keeping my secret.
Okay.
Final scrimmage that Georgia has. When you're coaching, what do you look for in that scrimmage? Understanding, as Kirby Smart said, fall camp ends this weekend, but it's a little more difficult now that classes started today at UGA.
Well, the first thing you want to do is make sure that whatever wasn't working well the first week, that you made the changes and the practices to see how you can implement it in the scrimmage situation. Because if you can't, then you got to really check to see, are we doing too much? Do we need to cut back? All that. But the one thing that I would say in our defense of last week is that Kirby's a kitchen sink type guy. He wants to put everything on the defense that he can to get them ready for the season. So our offense runs a lot of stuff that we don't run that's our offense to help our defense, which is good. But sometimes the execution isn't as good as running your own stuff. So we'll probably see a little bit more refined look of more Georgia stuff this week, just to see how these kids, particularly the young guys, do their stuff as far as executing their assignments. And you don't want a guy to not be able to play just because he doesn't know everything in the system. You want him to be able to utilize his skill set. So do what he does and see if he can help us win. That would be number one as far as making that. And then the second thing would be just how we mesh as a unit, offense, defense, special teams, and utilize field position and play the situations that are going to occur during the game. So last week we had, maybe a lot more 12, 14 play drives just to play football. But this week I think we'll see more situational stuff where it'll be scripted in where, okay, we're going to start the ball off on the 1 yard line and see if we can get it off the goal line. Or we're going to have a sudden turnover and we're going to put our defense on the 18-yard line. Or we're going to have a situation where we've got to have 3 squib kicks to, solidify the game. Or we're going to practice 4 pooch punts to see if we can down it inside they do that in practice, but do it out there in the scrimmage situation. Just a lot of situational type stuff. Then 2-minute offense, end of the half offense, 4-minute offense, more situational stuff. And then conditioning, see how our team has worked through this heat. Now, I can just tell you right now, everybody, if you're living in Georgia, I mean, just to go outside is an effort. I mean, and you think about a kid 320 pounds with that 40-plus pounds of equipment on him, going out there. They're not only out there for 100 and some plays and all that, but they go out there 12:05, do a walkthrough, a stretch. So they're out there in the heat from 12 to 3. And so really a well-conditioned team that's going to benefit from that. Of course, playing the first game indoors, but I always worry about those indoor games because of the anxiety level. You get a lot of cramping indoors sometimes, even though it's air conditioned and all. The anxiousness goes through your system. And so we'll have the IVs ready to put on the kids and all that. But so that's pretty much the capsule of what you're going to try to get.
Well, to that point, and I almost hesitate to say this because I don't want to put any bad voodoo out there, but Georgia has been mostly healthy in terms of long-term things, whereas Texas is down 2 running backs. Nebraska lost a left tackle. Notre Dame lost the left tackle. I saw before this, Darius Smith is out for the year at Missouri, and I hated to hear that. I think Darius is a really good football player, but he had a knee injury. Georgia so far has skirted most of that, and I've had some injuries, don't get me wrong, but it's not anything critical. I think Kirby would be happy about that part.
Yeah, all you can do is hold your breath. You got to go do it. I mean, you just can't sugarcoat it and say, okay, we're just going to protect everybody. And you just got to go out there and play football and play smart. I mean, we tell our defensive backs to avoid the pileups. You're not going to get that much help our team by jumping on the pile or an offensive lineman going down there and being real close to hitting a guy late or taking a chance of blocking a guy in the back. I'll just avoid a crisis situation by just being smart. So, yeah, I mean, I talked to Rick Clark by text yesterday, the father of Christian Clark, who I coached Rick at Marshall. And, he said his son was just doing a drill at Texas and jumped up to catch a ball and tore his Achilles. So just a terrible deal for him. And I hope he's going to, get better. I mean, this is a guy that we'd like to have, but we got Frazier, and then he just decided that he wanted to go to Texas and not compete with him here. But and then they lost Baxter, their best back. So that's pretty good hole in there on that Texas team right off the bat. Plus, when you look at the receivers they lost, it leaves Mitchell and Worthy. The Worthy's playing for Kansas City. So, but the injury part is the hardest part in being a coach and a player, just because you work so hard to get your team ready, and then one or two injuries can just make a difference in a whole year.
Yeah, I hate it for Jordan Hall. I mean, this is a kid who had I think a pin put in his leg because he had the stress fracture on one side, and then just as you kind of hope he's coming back, we saw him at practice. He was on the side, but at least he's moving around out there. He has the same thing on the other leg, and Kirby's like, well, at least he knows what it's like to go, how to recover from that. And I'm like, man, the thing about the injuries is they just don't feel fair. It's just you're playing a game and these guys get hurt. And Kirby was asked about it. How do you balance that, need for physicality versus the threat of injury? And he's like, as you said, Coach, because there's not a thing you can do. If you hold off, then everybody's soft. And there's no time during the season to regain that physicality. You need it today. And that means guys are going to get banged up and hurt. So, and again, what did they say later in the season? Like, we got to be more physical at the point of attack. So
one of the things I like about our team, maybe over any place I've ever seen in all the years that I've coached, is the way we understand how it's going to make you better as a player if you do the way we're supposed to, that we tell you to practice. By that, I mean us, Georgia. And that is that they go 100 miles an hour every snap. There's no halfway. I mean, it's always, but they don't hit the ground. They don't put you on the ground except 2 times, these 2 scrimmages. So you're doing everything at impact, engaging the line, doing everything, but you're not, and you're wrapping up on the tackle. So let's just say we're doing what we call thud. The defense is over there. The offense goes full speed, blocking everything. All the defenders rush up and try to wrap up the guy, but you don't put him on the ground. So you simulate the speed, the quickness, the physicality, but you don't actually hit the ground where most injuries occur. So, and then you do a lot of drills where you try to protect your team from having the chance to have an injury. For example, when you do team pass, by that I mean we're just practicing rushing the passer, playing a ball in the air, but you don't want the defense to get a lot of false situation that they're so good because you're sacking the quarterback that the ball's not in the air. So what we'll do is we'll put one side of the line is live and the other side is just going through their kick steps and just walking through it. But they're dead over there. So you give away the chance of anybody mashing together and knocking their legs up and all that. But you get a full speed rush on the quarterback, but the defense gets a chance to play the ball in the air. So you're taking away a little bit from the pass rush, but you're helping the defense. So those are just ways that you help your team get ready. Practicing tackling, like a lot of times we'll just put guys on the 2-yard line and they'll engage their helmets together and put their arm on the ball and the guy will get in the end zone. So let's just pretend that you're as an offensive back, you're getting ready to score a touchdown and the defender's getting ready to keep you out of the end zone. The impact's already happened because you're together there. Now,
right.
Now all you do is just drive to try to use your speed, quickness, and power, and the defender tries to just knock you back. But you've eliminated the contact part of it. But the last part of it shows you what a goal line tackle and a goal line run means. So these are just little things that probably I shouldn't talk about on this show because people don't want to hear about it. But that's the way you practice your team and protect from injury a little bit.
No, I mean, because that teaches you the physicality and it teaches you the technique. And Kirby always talks about strain. And if you're going helmet to helmet, if you're Trevor Etienne and you're going up against, Jake Pope trying to keep each other out of the end zone, that's strained. And you make them do it, like you said, after a 3-hour day in the heat, 94, 95 degrees up there. And Kirby's thrilled that it's hot. There have been years in the past where he's complained it wasn't hot enough because he knows it's going to hurt him in their stamina later in the season. So it's been hot, humid, and he's got his guys training. But if he can keep them from getting injured by doing stuff like that, that's brilliant. That's why he has better depth. And that's why we started the show off kind of laughing about the fact that he's like, hey, this is the worst depth we've ever had. I'm like, really? You seem to be looking pretty good.
He's right about the depth, though. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that haven't played. But I mean, there's talent and there's stars and all that. But they haven't had the reps. And by that, I mean, a lot of that comes from just practicing against each other, and you acquire depth going against good players. But so many of these guys just got here. A lot of them just got here in the spring. So it's going to be put the whole season. It's a journey here. Let's see how it goes. But we got to be ready to rock this first 4 games. We got an open date after Kentucky, but it's going to kind of set the standards for the year. I mean, you got 3 really good teams out of the first 4. I mean, just 3 really tough, and 2 of them on the road. Well, we don't play any of those guys at home. But we play in Clemson over Atlanta, but at Kentucky and at Alabama. So I don't think anybody in the country, including the Kansas City Chiefs, wants to come play in Sanford Stadium, though. I mean,
Roddy, I initially had the same reaction, but you can point to multiple positions just off the top of your head that if Georgia lost 1, maybe 2 guys, that it just gets really unknown very quick. Tight end, center, we're seeing that interior defensive line, safeties that way.
Hell, QB.
And that's not unique to Georgia. Every team in the country is that way, and I think that's correct.
Right. Now, I'm just saying there is the difference between depth and talent, and that's a good way to put it, Coach. Because I'm looking at how the sheer number of bodies. We go out there and watch them, and we're like, good Lord, these are athletes. These guys can play. But you're right, they haven't played. Even Kirby Smart said, look, he was asked about C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson, 2 of the inside linebackers. He goes, I forget they haven't been here that long. Those guys were true freshmen last year. And he says, when you start thinking about it, that's not a whole lot of time, but that's 2 guys, especially with Smile Munden, recovering. That's 2 guys that you're relying on who are just starting their sophomore year. So it's he's right about that 100%. We got a lot of questions in the comment section there that we need to get to, but I want to mention first our friends over at Academia Brewing Company. Check them out when you get a chance. They are a fantastic place to eat, a fantastic place to drink. They have car shows throughout the year. They have bike nights. They have trivia nights. They have live music. They have painting classes, all sorts of fun things going on. I'm meeting with, again, we need a few sponsors for our watch-along show. I'm meeting with some folks who could be a sponsor, something to check on. And they said, hey, we want to come and have lunch with you in Athens. Where do you want to go? Pick a spot. You're from there. And I'm like, where's a good place for a business meeting? Academia Brewing Company. Let's go there. We'll have great food, and I know we'll impress them because of the atmosphere there. And it's a great place to actually, you can hear each other talk. So if you want to have a good meal, good friendship, swing by Academia Brewing Company when you get the chance. Speaking of good food, you missed the double points day yesterday at Your Pie, but you can still get their fantastic peach and prosciutto pizzas, their salads, their sandwiches, the gelato, the custom pasta. There's a lot of fun stuff, and wings now. You can get wings there. So go to the Your Pie app, order your pizza, have it delivered, pick it up, or go to the store. It's custom made. You get it exactly the way you want it. There's no extra charge for toppings. You pick whatever you like, as much as you like, and they will make it for you right there on the spot. It's the best pizza you can get. There's 70-plus locations. It's created by 2 huge Georgia fans, Drew and Natalie French. Check them out.
Before we get to questions, I saw this while I was rocking the baby, frankly, on my phone. But, Coach, you're going to like this. Kirby Smart tweeted out that Carson Beck graduated this summer. I mentioned first day of classes for fall. That means that summer graduates have happened here in the last couple of weeks, and that's a big deal for Carson Beck. 1, a UGA degree just means a lot. But 2, I have no idea what his schedule looks like for fall, but I always think of Matt Leinart in that final year at USC, where I think he was taking ballroom dancing, and you could kind of manage your schedule to focus on football. When you don't have those final classes for your degree undergrad, I bet there's some flexibility there that this is a very friendly schedule for Carson Beck academic-wise.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Congratulations. I think a lot of people that come back for their last year. I know my last year at State, we had red shirts back then. And so I took some course, and I don't know, some catfish course, but I learned this. Alaman left with the old left hand. Now back to your partner with the right left grand. Big foot up and little foot down. Make that big foot hit the ground. Down in the barnyard on my knees, I thought I heard a chicken sneeze. Sneeze so hard with the hoop and cough. Sneeze his head and tail right off. Now Alaman left with the old left hand and back to your partner with the right left grand. That's what I learned my senior year.
Go Pat.
Wow, and you still remember it?
Yeah, I had to swing your partner promenade. I forgot to do that. Ladies to the center and back to the bar. Gents to the center with a right hand star. Okay, so I'm crazy. Let's go.
Not crazy at all. Right? The fact that your memory is that much better than mine, that's frustrating to me.
It took a long time for me to learn that. I had to really practice it, but that was what I was doing my last year, that little square dancing.
Last year I took a
We had to
speech
sing a
course.
song too with a group song, and mine was he's got the whole world in his hand because I wanted everybody to sing along with me.
Let's get to questions here from Bulldog Ben. Questions about running back. If Etienne and Roderick Robinson were out game one, would Branson start? Do you split carries with Frazier, Cash Jones? What would running back look like?
Yeah, you got to think that Cash Jones would be right up there because of his experience. And then I think more than anything, just because he's been around, you probably wouldn't put Frazier in there right off the bat. But, we sub so much and use so many different personnel groupings that we'll be good there. I like Chauncey Bowen's power right now. I mean, he really moves the pile, and we'll see how everything works out. But you got to think that Branson's going to be ready to go. And if they're just being careful, that's one of the bad things about being a student here at Georgia. I mean, kids walking around going to class and somebody sees them with a boot on. Hey, they put boots on them to protect them. He might have been practicing yesterday. Who knows? But hopefully he'll be okay.
Had a question in here from James Caraway. And initially I was thinking this is not the time for this question, but coaches have to think far ahead. So this is about roster sizes and expansion of Georgia's schedule and the portal. He asked, after listening to Coach's comments, how active do you expect Kirby Smart to be when the spring portal hits? Are they already thinking about roster management at that point?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with what happens during the course of the recruiting cycle here. We've got to go on and finish out this cycle on the early signing date and then see where we stand. And then see how many guys stay, how many guys go pro, how many leave for the portal. But you're always looking and thinking ahead, and you've got people analyzing people around the country, so you're ready to rock when that window opens here after the playoffs. So it's all dependent pretty much on the recruiting first, and then we'll see how it goes.
James also asked about defensive line depth. I know we've talked about that position a lot, specifically mentioning Brinson Hall and Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins all having some injuries in the fall.
Well, the good news is that Ingram-Dawkins really played well last week in the scrimmage and has gotten, a full boat of health as far as being able to go. They protected him in the spring. Brinson's got the same situation with the Achilles that they're being real careful. He's a very intellectual player. He knows what to do. He's getting the conditioning, and that's one position where you probably don't need to do near as much contact as maybe some others, because you can do drills and hit the sled and do all that, but just be careful with your foot situation. And then we'll just see Hall how quickly he can come back. But the fact that he's got had to have that rod put in his one leg, and I don't know what exactly in the other. It's going to be a little while for him, but boy, he's a really good player. And we got some good young guys there, though. And we picked up that McLeod kid from South Carolina, and we'll see. But again, I'm the optimist here from one standpoint. Our perimeter is going to be so good with the linebackers, outside linebackers, and secondary run support that all these inside guys need to do is just get a tie there, and you're going to have a lot of guys running free. Plus, our offense is going to put a lot of pressure on the other team because we're going to be ahead. So you can sub nickel packages, dime package, and maybe not play quite as many D linemen so you can rush the passer. So all that's going to evolve and help us make up for any deficiency with the D line.
MRH 35. Oh, go ahead, Roddy.
I was going to say, look, don't forget you got Nazir Stackhouse out there. He's looks really good. Christian Miller can be an absolute pain in the butt. He doesn't look as fast as he is, but he can fly. And then, of course, we got a story on Jamal Jarrett we're about to we just put up on the front page. He's one of those guys, a North Carolina guy, coach, just like you. And Kirby said he's kind of going up and down on his weight, but Kirby's on him a lot because he expects a lot out of him. The Jordan Davis comparisons are there, but Jamal Jarrett, don't forget him. Just because if you go by practice and you hear Kirby yelling at him, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, he's definitely got a weight situation, a lot like Jordan Davis, trying to get that under control, which Jordan finally did. And got that young kid from Cary that's going to be a good lineman too. Got some good players. Jalen Walker from North Carolina, Wilson from North Carolina. There's 2 DBs from Charlotte, really making Mac Brown mad.
From MRH 35-35, why didn't Colby Young and KJ Bolden play in the scrimmage?
I mean, hey, Kirby, what happened on that? I wish I knew. I don't have any clue about, probably just some kind of nitpicking thing that they couldn't supposedly that he wasn't mentioned yesterday. Either one of them is the injury list, was it?
They were not. I mean, but again, like you said,
if they don't play this week, then it would have to be something that bothers. And it's definitely a good question, but I just don't. I don't have privy to that answer.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you guys have such a small thing, and as we were just talking about, you're trying to get everybody to the finish line, but make them physical. And right now, you don't need Colby Young out there as much, and KJ Bolden with those. They're 2 newcomers this year. They have to go on the scrimmage because you're working the other guys to get them ready.
KJ played 9 million reps in the spring and all summer, and that's a position where we got to have some depth. And he's fighting for a starting position. I think if there was any doubt about him, I could see why they would have held him out. They played Pope, the transfer from Alabama, and then Dan Jackson, of course Malachi. A lot of people don't understand. Malachi Starks is on our punt team, one of the best guys in the world at protecting and then covering. He's on our punt team, and he's a starting safety. Dan Jackson's on the punt team, on the punt block team. Both Arian Smith and the 2 gunners on our punt team, 2 starting wide receivers. So they're an integral part of our kicking game.
That's been just a mainstay of Kirby Smart at Georgia. Roddy, you remember when we saw Sony Michel for the first time be a gunner?
Yeah, that's right. First time his name was called was dropping, I think South Carolina or somebody on a long punt. Like, hey, who's number 1? Oh yeah, it's a kid out of Miami. So,
from Phil Rogers, Coach, how many times do you think Carson Beck will go deep in the Clemson game? Deep passing attack.
If Clemson keeps their same MO, which is the same kind of defense that Venables had, which was a lot of pressure with from the standpoint of teams that they play in the ACC, they can get away with it because they get some mismatches up there with the front and with their linebackers running through and all. So they do have a package where they really come. But, you got Matt Luke over there now who's coaching their O-line, and he's going to talk to them about our protections and talk to their defensive coaches about what we do and all that. And they're going to have some ideas about how to rush us, but I hope they do, because I don't think they can cover us. I really don't think that they match up on the outside. They if you look at Clemson's team, when they were a championship team, they had pro defensive backs, they had pro wide receivers, and they had guys going to the league and running back. You don't see a lot of that right now. Now, maybe coming up, they've got them in the wings, but that's what's been the nemesis for them the last 3 years, the fact they hadn't made the playoffs because of that. So, I used to go to sleep at night before a game and think about what I was worried about and what I was hoping that other team might do that they did in this game. Please blitz us. Please bring them, Clemson. Please do all you can, and we'll be very thankful.
And don't forget, you stole Dalen Everett right before he signed with Clemson. So
Yeah, he was a Brent Venables guy, and when Venables got the OU job, we picked him up. That was just pennies from heaven, and he's had a good camp. And here's a guy that's kind of been around and stayed around and learned the technique, and he's a very salty player.
Let's wrap with 2 comments here. James Caraway says that I just read the running back question first, so we could all talk about Cass Jones together. Totally true. Kirby Smart says not enough people are giving Cass Jones credit, so Kirby Smart does not listen to our show because I talk about Cass Jones relentlessly. And
I don't think Kirby listens to many shows now, but at the same time, got some of the parents that do, and I'm glad they do because we try to talk about these kids. But Cass Jones, as I mentioned earlier in the show, there's people around the country that would pay good money to get him in there playing for him. The guy can block. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's explosive. He's a great special teams player, and he epitomizes what it means to be a Georgia Bulldog. He just loves to come to work every day, and he does his best every down. Great player for us.
And Looking says that they're hearing that Dwight Phillips is getting in the mix in the running back room. Jermaine King says hopes that in the future, Phillips is one of the guys potentially returning kickoffs to Georgia.
Right. He's got such a jet in his butt. It's unbelievable. This guy, he can rock. But I think we're going to be really excited about Evans returning punts. Fearless catching the ball, got great quickness after the catch, hard to tackle. He's excellent on the jet sweeps. Just a real special athlete that's going to help our punt return in a lot of ways. And I'm getting some good vibes about this new punter that we've got. Certainly we're going to have Thorson for another year, but they say this kid he's from South Dakota, North Dakota. I'm not sure where we signed him from, but they say he's going to be a really good punter in the future too. And I'm glad to always get those kind of vibes about because as a ex-coach, you worry about your kicking game. I mean, it's just hard to get a guy like Thorson or a guy like Peyton Woodring. I mean, what a year for a freshman that he had last year. He's just a tremendous kicker.
I mean, you had to go to Australia to find a guy like Thorson, so they're not that common. When you talk about a guy like Evans being fearless on those punt returns, do you ever get scared for somebody thinking this kid doesn't know how to protect himself?
Well, here's the thing. Again, Kirby Paul Smart, I'm just telling you now, he's on those punt returners about as much as he is anybody about, number one, fair catch the ball. Don't let it hit the ground and give them 10 or 15 yards. So if you're not able to do that, he's not going to put you back there. So you got to be fearless from a standpoint of catching his wrath or catching whoever. He's good at that. And he really enjoys a challenge, kind of like McConkey did. His freshman, sophomore year, what's this guy back there for? It's because he can make good decisions. Same thing with Muse. You just don't want the ball rolling. It's hard to make first downs on our team defensively, but you let a team get 10, 15, 20 yards on a roll, that's 2 first downs. So he definitely he is a big plus for us. I mean, a huge plus.
Yeah, there were a couple times last year I'm like, okay, he's just going to fair catch it, and he'd catch it and then take off, and I'm like, he's going to get killed. So I was like,
conversely, you got to be careful about being too fearless and understand, look, it's okay to fair catch it. We don't need, but don't just automatically fair catch it either. So there's a lot of judgment involved in punt return and kickoff return. That's why on a punt return, you don't have somebody back there to help you, tell you where the rush is coming and all that. As compared to a kickoff return, we always had the guy opposite the return guy that catches it, tells him whether to come out or not. Because we want him to look the ball into his hands, secure the catch, and then the decision's made by the other guy whether to go or not. Because if it's a low kick and it goes in the end zone, maybe you can get it out of there. But you don't want to take a chance on coming out from the 3 or 4 and getting tackled on the 8 because you couldn't make that decision. That's why you let the other guy make that. And you never count on the guy catching it to make that decision.
All right. That's our questions and comments, Roddy.
I can just see somebody stealing Carson Beck's helmet, putting it on there, so that maybe you could have that little communication with the coach, for the special teams guys.
That's another thing that we probably cover next week, but there's some learning curve there about how to use this, the mechanics of the, the helmet communication to the defender or to the defensive, the quarterback. I think on defense, it might not necessarily be to the linebacker. It might be to a star or a safety. I don't know how we're going to do it, but they're looking at all different ways to communicate. And then you're still going to have to signal to a certain extent because of the spread offenses people run. You can't huddle up and listen to the call. So everybody's going to get the signal too.
Yeah, Kirby even said, "Hey, we're not sure we'll be able to hear." So, yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. We'll pull his clip from this week and talk about it.
You don't know about that, particularly on the road.
Exactly. He said it's loud in the SEC, and it's going to be loud. It's going to be loud at that Clemson game, and it'll be loud at. People may not think it, but it's loud at Alabama. Loud at Kentucky. That Kroger Field it's wild there too. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for this week's show. So sorry for the internet issues we had earlier. Appreciate everybody sticking through and putting up with us. It means a lot for putting up with me. Coach, great show. Dane, thanks for finally joining us. Dane was the one saving the show as he always does, and we appreciate it. We'll talk to you folks later. Take care.